Director of Personal and Preventative Health for the Jackson County Health Department, RN Matthew Budd. Hi, Matthew.
Hey, how are you doing? I'm glad to see you.
Good to see you. And you're back with your favorite topic, sexually transmitted diseases.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an important topic, and it's something that doesn't always get talked about in regards to prevention and treatment. So we're happy to be a part of trying to spread some awareness during STD Awareness Month, our week. So it's Sexually Transmitted Infection Awareness Week. All this week, and as it's been with, I think, the case with so much during the pandemic, everything else has taken a back seat. And so has the disease, has the state of the disease worsened, or has it been, what's it been like? It has, so early on in 2020, there was some speculation that rates would go down. People were spending more time to themselves, and, there was less time for people to, meet, and the bars were closed. And so we expected cases to go down, but what we've actually seen a few months after things kind of open up for a while and close for a while, and as we know for healthcare, people didn't get in for their primary care visits. Mm-hmm. People delayed their pap smears. And what we did see was an increase in sexually transmitted infections in the last couple of years. Right, so things like chlamydia, we've seen decreased rates, but a lot of that is thought to be decreased in pap smears and routine care for women. And then also we do see an increase in gonorrhea and syphilis, which is pretty worrisome because syphilis was pretty low for quite a while in the US.
Wow. Yeah, because I think the assumption was if people were hooking up, they were in the bubble with people that they were, I guess familiar with, and making sure that they weren't spreading COVID, but it looks like they were spreading other stuff.
Yeah, and it does, but there's some steps we can take, and this is where, we come in with our partners, of course, let people know that it's okay to talk about it, and to talk with your partners, and to seek testing. Routine testing is great. It's really recommended for women 25 and younger who aren't in a monogamous relationship to consider yearly testing to make sure that that their screening's going okay, and make sure that they're not at increased risk. And same for males that might be at risk too. We recommend routine screening because much like COVID, where a lot of people can go and be positive but not have any symptoms, a lot of sexually transmitted infections will never develop symptoms. So you can carry it and pass it on to others without knowing you're infected.
Wow. So there's some things people can do to take their own personal responsibility to protect themselves and others.
Right. Absolutely. And those are things like talking to your primary care providers. And we, of course, do talk about risk avoidance. So abstinence is one of those big things about that's really important in avoiding STIs and pregnancy. But if you're not doing risk avoidance, there's some risk mitigation you can do. And that's that communication, that's that wearing protection, and having protection available, more male or female. And it's also talking to your provider about things like PrEP if you're at risk for HIV, which many sexually active people may be.
I guess the common perception is that men who have sex with men are affected more by HIV and AIDS. Other diseases as well?
Yeah, so we do see a higher rate of sexually transmitted infections and diseases in men who have sex with men. And so part of that is just there's a little bit of higher risk factors in those relationships from time to time. And so we do encourage, protection, open communication, and trying to know your partner's history and your own history.
And some things they're more treatable than others, like there's no cure for HIV/AIDS, but what about the other diseases?
Yeah, the majority of diseases are treatable or curable. So gonorrhea, chlamydia, syphilis, it takes a diagnosis and then some antibiotics. So there are some strains of antibiotic-resistant sexually transmitted infections out there, so we don't recommend just taking some antibiotics yourself. We recommend coming in for a treatment. We got some strong ones that'll take care of it. But a lot of the infections that we see, other than HIV, hepatitis B, HPV, we can treat those very easily.
Yeah, people are, like with COVID, they're not willing to go to spread the word that they had the disease. Like contact tracing, is there something similar that happens for STDs?
There is. This is where the health departments were pretty well set up for contact tracing for COVID because we do partner therapy. So we do the contact tracing. Somebody comes in, they're positive. We try to take a partner history and we try to contact them anonymously to let them know that, hey, you may have been exposed because somebody came in here who said that they've had relations with you and they were positive. So we recommend coming in. We can do some screening because not everybody who they were partners with will actually pass it on to the other person. So we can do some screening and get antibiotics to those people too.
Do you get people when you're doing that interview, they say, I didn't catch their name?
We do our best to actually to be thorough. And it's really, it takes a lot of work, a lot of tracking, but it's really important. And it is a service that, again, along with less healthcare providers out there, a lot of the resources for that contact tracing and for that partner therapy, they were less available during the pandemic. So again, that can be part of that rise.
Plus people just they're not comfortable talking about it.
Oh, right. There's a lot of stigma out there, right? There's a lot of people who feel like, oh, this is my fault. And that's not quite true. Just like COVID, you can be out and trying to take all the steps that you can to keep yourself safe and still find yourself with a situation in which you need to talk to a healthcare provider and seek treatment. So, it's not about someone's fault. It's about taking those next steps and making sure that you remain safe, because sexually transmitted infections, those diseases, they can result in some serious problems along the way, such as ectopic pregnancy and fertility issues if they go untreated.
Is there a difference between STI and STD? There
is. And so that's a fantastic question. So sexually transmitted infection, that's being infected with the organism itself. Okay. So, and because not everyone will develop symptoms or develop a disease, you can have an infection without having it be an STD. It becomes a disease when you have that disease state. So if you have genital warts, or if you have an illness related to HIV, or diagnosed with HIV, that then is considered a disease. Whereas the infection might be chlamydia that's only detected with a Pap smear, for example.
I mean, there's quite a few, aren't there?
Yes.
Yeah. Is there an age group that is most susceptible, or are you seeing cases among a certain population?
Well, so nationally and here in Jackson, the people most at risk are 15 to 24-year-olds, with 20 to 24-year-olds being probably the highest prevalence there, but those teenage groups too. Very interesting to me, and I think very important to mention, though, one group in the last decade who's had more cases and over almost double the amount of cases in the last decade is actually individuals 55 and older. And that's because, teens, youth, they have those conversations. They know about the protection they can take, and people in their 50s, their first thought is, well, we're not getting pregnant. So, there's other protective steps there, talking with your partner about histories, and also making sure that protection is involved is really important.
Well, I don't think you've said the word yet.
Condoms.
Condom,
right.
Because protection, that's, people use that, but it's also going to be a false sense of security against STIs or STDs?
It's still really important, and condoms do a great job to offer protection, but you have to be used correctly. And so, you don't want to put it on sloppily. And so there's all these steps that you need to do to make sure you're prepared in that moment. And that's kind of what the Awareness Week is developing a plan beforehand. So knowing what you're going to do, knowing how things are going to work before you find yourself in a moment where you don't have everything necessary to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
But we're in the community quite a bit. A lot of events, you'll find us in our clinic, sexual health clinic. We do have resources available, including condoms. And also when we're out in the community at some events, not all, of course, we'll have some of these tools, resources available, be that information on where to talk to a healthcare provider or do screening, or condoms packaged discreetly in case somebody's in need.
And you have those, you pass them out?
We do, thousands, to be honest.
Wow. Well, while we have you here, let's get a quick update on where we are with COVID. We're starting to see, it changes every day, doesn't it?
It does. It's hard to keep up with, and in the last few weeks I've told people, it's a full-time job. It's a little less of a full-time job than it was a few months ago, but it is a full-time job to keep up with the guidance and where the numbers are and what the cases are looking like. I think people are hearing across the U.S. cases are rising about 10% in the last week, and mostly located in the northeast part of the U.S. We have the BA2 variant that's spreading. It seems to be very virulent, so it passes from person to person pretty easy. But right now, nationally, our hospitalizations numbers are some of the lowest they've been in the past 2 years for COVID as well. And part of that is because people are vaccinated, so people have a lot of protection against hospitalization, and also a lot of people do have protection from catching the virus in the past too. And then one of the reminders that I do like to give is people get colds year after year and flu year after year, so some of that protection does wane over time, but right now, that protection is helpful.
So you can get the vaccine still for COVID, the boosters, and you also do HPV vaccines. Right?
Yeah, we do. It's a great protection. We see, somewhere between 10 and 15,000 HPV-related cervical cancers per year, but there's also other types of cancers. So throat cancers HPV is one of the most common causes right after smoking and alcohol use for cancers of the throat.
Really?
So HPV is really important there. So we recommend children as young as 9 to 15 getting the HPV vaccine. That's why they are protected as they go into adulthood.
All right, Matthew, last time you were here, we gave each other an assignment to try a new food. Do you have a report?
I do, and so I can thank WIC for trying to broaden the horizons of the kids that we see in our community. They brought in some kumquats for them to try, and I was able to have a kumquat. Now, I will lie, I cheated a little bit. I had a kumquat, I know, as a kid, but it's been over 20 years, and it was good. A little sweet, a little tart, and I've heard a lot of people say too sour, but I thought it was great.
Well, I have to confess, I can't think of anything new I tried. I sought stuff out, I just didn't find anything. So I promise you, next time you're here, I'll be able to report on something.
That sounds great.
Although I did have a macaron, which after I had it, I realized I'd never really had a real one.
Yeah.
And it's pretty awesome.
Well, I was going to say, that could be something, maybe we bring some in next time, we get a real authentic, some macaron. That sounds great.
All right, I'll do it. Well, thanks for coming in, and happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Thanks, Matthew. Matthew Budd is the Director of Personal and Preventative Health Services with the Jackson County Health Department. As we said, it's Easter, Holy